Good morning, everybody. Can we get a sound check on your mics before we get started?
Yes.
Sounds great.
How are we doing? I see Michael online.
He can't. Yeah.
Yep, he can hear you.
Can you hear you? All right.
Hi, guys. Good morning.
Good morning.
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 Sounds great. Have a wonderful meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
All right. Good morning and welcome to the June meeting of the Library Board of Trustees monthly meeting. First, we'll go. My name is Tressa Selleck. I'm the chair of the board. And let's go around and introduce the members who are here. Start with John Johnston.
John Johnston, Vice President.
Dorothy Waters.
Sharon Fitzsimmons, trustee.
Michael Dunn, trustee.
I was waiting for John Walters to speak. Michael Dunn, trustee.
All right. So we have a quorum and we're ready to get started. So first, can we get an approval for the agenda for today?
I make a motion to approve today's agenda.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Second.
Second, Michael. All approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. First simple thing passes. So approve the May minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look over the May minutes?
See a misspelling of my name about halfway down the reference to Adobe Acrobat. That 4D.
Okay.
See 4D.
Look under 4D.
4D,
I
little I.
says we left a T out there.
All right. Anything else? Can we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
I'll take that as a first and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Oh,
All right, let's move on to celebrations.
yeah, good morning. We've got two different celebrations this morning. The first is for the early start of the Library Associate Training Institute, which is a program that gets people up to speed on what it means to be a librarian and to work in libraries. And that's for Hannah Bear and Loranda Gray have both completed that program. Congratulations to both of those. And we have another one, and for completing the Master of Library and Information Science, Sandy Kleist, who has over the last 2 years not only bootstrapped our outreach and mobile library program, had a family life, but also completed a Master of Library and Information Science. Indomitable energy. Sandy, congratulations. And we do have something for you.
I just wanted to say thank you. It's been a very busy 2 years between the masters and, as Michael said, bringing the mobile library branch to life. I'm very thankful to everyone, the library admin team, Smurl, all of your support, the tuition assistance really made this journey possible. And there's so many takeaways. I'm very thankful to have completed this program because I really feel that it will help us in the work that we do, and it already is paying dividends in the providing or finding ways to overcome barriers and the work that we're doing with the Spanish-speaking community, the incarcerated individuals at the detention center, our veterans at the at Charlotte Hall Veterans Home, and the children and the seniors. So above and beyond. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate it and happy to be done. So.
Okay.
And the plaque that Sandy has is kind of a traditional gift we give for people who have finished their master's degree. So put it on your desk and watch with pride. Moving on then.
Anything else? Okay. So next we'll move on to approving the EALs.
I had a comment for Belinda actually, and I know she's not here.
She's
Oh,
on.
John.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, hello. So I was noticing in the ledger, and I know we go through this every month, but the question of the cards, the credit cards comes through as just a single payment as miscellaneous expenses. I'm wondering if we can set a threshold over which I don't want to make more work for you, but if you could print that statement, just having $18,000 behind a credit card that we don't know how that was spent is a little unnerving to me. I'm okay if it's like, 1,000 because like paper and whatever, that makes sense, but 18 seemed like a lot.
It's 18 across 9 credit cards. So
Okay.
I'm paying 9 credit cards for that. So it's one payment for 9 different credit cards. I can't print that on this EAL. It would have to be a different report that would just print out every expense we do on the credit cards. In general, our credit cards are used for conferences or webinars. Of course, Laura uses hers for purchasing all of our hotkey stuff that we send, like our pins. So she has to do that because all of her vendors don't send, a lot of her vendors don't actually send us invoices. It has to be through credit cards because they're online. And other than that, it would be for anything big that a branch has to buy, or anything actually little too. The bill goes to Michael's often. She goes to Walmart. She goes to Dollar Store. She's buying lots of little things for programs. And so she'll have like 15 different charges, and they're all smaller. So it is 18. This particular one is because we also did, I can't remember how much of MLA was on this, but we had some bigger charges on this one. But I would have to print a separate report for the credit cards.
Right. And I don't think it's necessary every time, because I totally understand there is some petty cash sorts of things for like Walmart and stuff like that. I'm wondering if we could set a threshold if that credit card payment goes above a certain amount, then we'd get more itemized information about it.
Are you asking for a threshold for an individual expense? All right, a credit card expense over 200, may we see that? Or are you asking for if it goes over a certain, the whole total is over a certain thousand, which would you rather see?
I'd open it up to discussion. I think that there's benefit to both, but again, don't want to put a whole bunch of extra work out. I
should also note that a number of things are grant funded. So for example, when we go to a conference, the hotel room will be on a credit card, and then that's not a library expense per se because we resubmit that as a grant request or a grant reimbursement. So
yeah, absolutely.
And I can tell you that quite a bit of those purchases were Lexington Park Makerspace purchases. Because some of our vendors wouldn't accept either an invoice or a payment. So we had to put things on credit cards to get equipment and cabinetry.
I thank you, Sharon, for raising this. I had kind of a similar thought looking at this. I think when we look at the EALs and when we look at our duty as trustees to kind of, be aware of the expenses, it is a challenge when such a big chunk of money is sort of just listed as miscellaneous expenses when everything else on this docket every month is so granular and specific. I think, so I appreciate Sharon's ideas on that. To get to Michael's point, yeah, I don't know, maybe if the credit card is over a certain threshold, then it would be helpful to see the breakdown. But I don't know, Belinda, is there like a better way or an easier way to sort of be able to share some of the details of this 18,000 with the trustees?
I mean, I'm going to have to write a report to do this, which I can do. I just have to figure out what I need to pull. I will say, like Amy Ford said, this particular one is 18,001. It's the end of the year. And so we have some of the branches trying to spend out their funds, and we're trying to fund a makerspace. And so a lot of it really was that makerspace. As far as, I mean, it's fine with me. If whatever you want to see, I can show you. Even though this is a one-time payment of $18,000, but that money shows up in the bill, in the budget, like in different line items. It's not like it just spending $18,000 and it doesn't go anywhere. It shows up on every line item of the budget because it's all put out into something. Even if it's a grant, it's put out, it's on that grant line item. So it's up to you. What you want, I can give you. You just have to tell me what you want and what you want that threshold to be. If you want if you want us to tell you when something is over a certain price, or if you want the entire credit card to be over a certain price, I can then run the report. I mean, I think that you see that most of the time it's under 10,000. Again, this one was, I'm sorry, under 1,000. I'm not thinking correctly. Sorry, I'm on vacation, but it's not usually as high as this one.
So am I hearing you're comfortable with a figure of 10,000, or Michael, is your comment about things being granular a request to see everything?
I don't know. I don't know. What do other folks think?
I think that we see that what's spent already in the line items of the budget. I don't think that we need to, in my opinion, I don't think we need to see the nitty-gritty of the credit card of how they pay for things. We know what they pay for because it's all given to us in the budget dollars or in the budget report. So that's my opinion. I don't think we need an extra report. I don't think we need to put extra work on Belinda. She already does the budget and gives us very detailed information of what is spent overall in the library. That's my opinion.
Are there limits on each card anyway?
Yes, there are. So Michael and myself and Marianne have a higher limit, but everybody else has $3,000. So for anything that has to go like super expensive, they have to come to one of the three of us and to get it approved and to use our credit cards. If it is a high priced item, they have to come to us anyway. And of course, they're checking with me before they spend money anyway. Like Our branch managers and our admin staff always check with me and say, I have this bill, can I pay it? What is it? What is it? This is how much it is. But they all have a $3,000 limit. And anything above that, or if their credit card is maxing out, they have to come to one of the three of us to use our credit cards, and we pay that one. They bring it to us. We reach out to do the bill. So just to be clear, like no one uses their credit card without me knowing what it's for and why, even in advance. And I'm checking those credit cards throughout the month. Like I am logging on to the bank account to look and see, and I'm asking them to send me the receipts as it occurs to see so that I'm showing what's happening on those accounts. Again, I can show you and I can print out for you whatever you want. We're not trying to hide anything. We spend money only on things that the library needs. And so it's what you want. We can provide it.
This is just how they pay the bill. I mean, if we don't want it to see every check that's, paid, that's written out or anything. I mean, this is just how bills are paid. We do see what's paid.
So if we're talking about why we approve the monthly expenses ledger, though, the point is that the trustees are looking at the money and making sure that it is going to legitimate reasons. And when it is a lump sum to a credit card, we can't do that because we don't know
But we can
what was
see it.
behind
We
the
can see
legitimate
it when
reasons.
we look at the budget
The
report.
budget tells us that it was taken out of a particular envelope. It doesn't tell us actually who it went to. And the ledger tells us who it went to. So there's kind of that, those are the two, it's kind of a checks and balances thing where we get to see both, where we're seeing it came out of this part of the budget. So it's accounted for, and it went to this person or this thing. So it's legitimate expense. And I think that, like my feeling is that when I scan my own, like when I'm doing my own budget at home, or like when I even check out at the grocery store, if something seems high, I look for like, what was the high item? Oh, look, I bought meat. It was $25 for a roast this week, and that's the kind of thing that I do. So I feel like having a threshold of saying, if we get to see what were the expenses behind that credit card, if it's over $2,000, that makes sense to me because then I'm able to do my duty to account for, make sure it went to a legitimate expense. Does that make sense?
I just think that is what Belinda already does. She ensures that the library's money is spent where it's supposed to be spent. I don't know that we need to see that report. I mean, that's just me. I just think that's what Belinda already does. So why I don't feel that we need to double check that when she gives us a budget report, we could see what money is spent. And she is the one who ensures that they're legitimate vendors. She's the one who ensures.
Well, I also approve every credit.
And
card
Michael
statement,
approves it,
and I
so-
approve every invoice. So, but if if the majority of the board wishes to see this, we don't have any trouble providing it for you.
So
I understand both concepts. I mean, plus I agree with you. We actually have a checks and balances besides just me. Michael signs off on every credit card slip before I pay it. He has to look through every credit card log. They all have to create a log. They're not just sending me their statement and receipts. They have to create a log and tell me why they spent it, what they spent it for, and what budget they want it to go to. Michael has to look at every single one of those and sign off on it before I ever pay the credit card log. So Tressa, you're right. We do have that. And on top of that, the auditors pull credit card logs every audit, multiple times, multiple credit card logs. I'm sending them and they're checking them. However, I understand what you're saying, Sharon. It is a checks and balances for you if you want it. We can try creating one. I will say though, you mentioned $2,000, and I just said that every credit card has a $3,000 max. I'm going to be printing one every month. So if that's your max, then that's just going to be another report.
Michael, you have I'm sorry, Belinda. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Michael, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate, I'm with Sharon on this, I'll say. I appreciate the checks and balances conversation, but to me that, like, why do we look at the EALs? If we don't need to, if there are already checks and balances baked in the system, what is the purpose of us looking at the EALs? And I feel like we're reviewing transactions for $14.82, $21.98. And then we have a giant $18,000 expense that we don't really know anything about. Like that, that is concerning to me. And it's something as easy as like expanding in the memo or description to say more about like, we can't do that.
It's not as
Yeah,
easy as that.
no,
I
we
mean,
can.
hold on, Michael. I have to write those memos. I have to write those memos for you every month. So I have to run this EL report and then write in the memo what it is for each of you, because the way QuickBooks works, I have it in a memo, but it doesn't pull on this report, and no memo will pull on this report. And it's $18,000. So then I'm going to have to pull up all the credit cards and be like, okay, well, we spent, what am I pulling? What am I going to, I'm just guessing what you might want to know about. It's easier for me to just create another report. And you just see each line item of the credit card log. And again, that's not as simple as it sounds, because it's 9 different credit cards. It's actually 9 different reports. So I can do it. And I think that if this is the concern, let's try this next month, in the next couple months, and see if it's actually what you want to see. And if it's important for you, and then we can readdress it.
Yeah.
I say we just,
Thank you.
if this is what you guys want, then I think that we should just do it and let you see it.
Yeah, we might decide at some point that it might be too much detail, and there might be a sweet spot where we can say, like, we want to know if an amount in a given month is a little bit out of the ordinary. What sort of things came up during the month that were, either unexpected or if a bunch of conferences all happened around the same time. But
Right.
knowing, I think, is part of the oversight.
Mhm.
And I think that's a good call. And also, I do think, Sharon, your idea of just a max for the whole credit card is a good idea. This is a high one. It's 18,000. As we said, most of it is Makerspace. And then we usually have a high one around MLA. Generally, those are our high ones. Sometimes we do have some higher ones when if Laura's buying a bunch of items to restock for summer reading or things like that. So I can start printing and showing you what's on there maybe the next month or two, and then maybe we could set a max for the entire payment, and to show you what's, like, if it's a big payment, there's reasons for it.
I would like that. Thank you.
All right, well, that's what will happen then, and thank you for bringing that forward. Other questions about the expenses?
I have a question about on page 2, just about halfway down. What are admin phones with Verizon Wireless, and why do we have them?
They are cell phones for all of our administrative staff. We have them, not all of our administrative staff, specific administrative staff. We have them so that all of our branches and our staff can reach us for emergency situations outside of hours or when we are traveling. And because all of our phones, we are a public entity, all of our phones and all our communication are subject to the
Freedom of Information Act.
Thank you, Freedom of Information Act. We need to keep separate phones. We shouldn't be doing these on our personal phone.
Well, aside from my concern about that explanation, are we in the cheapest wireless plan that we could be in?
Well, sometimes cheapest isn't
Yes.
better. Verizon has the best coverage in this area. Many of the other, I've heard cellular phones do not service the southern part of the county. So Verizon might not be the cheapest, but it has the best coverage for this county.
Well,
And
recently shopping myself, I checked the coverage map for other than Verizon, and it holds up all the way down to Point Lookout.
so, John, we did just do this last year. We went through Verizon and reevaluated the phones. We still find that for us, Verizon is still the best choice. It's not, we also have other things besides the admin phones. We have a couple of iPads that are used for programming because they do offsite programming. So they're on there. So we have some hotspots that are used for our staff for different programming and things like that. So it's an entire, there are a couple other things other than just the phones, but in general, we did look through this last year we updated and brought down some of the costs a little bit. It actually did go down a little bit. And we do check this. But for us right now, Verizon is our best option. We also use AT&T for Wi-Fi hotspots on the mobile library, and we have the T-Mobile hotspots. So we use 3 different carriers in our library system for different reasons. Our T-Mobile hotspots and our Wi-Fi T-Mobiles, they don't work around Lexington Park Library at all. Like if you check out one of our T-Mobile Wi-Fi hotspots, it doesn't work around that area because of the base. For T-Mobile, gets kicked out from the base. So T-Mobile doesn't work for us everywhere in the county. We found that AT&T, our mobile library has to switch back and forth between our AT&T and our, I can't remember if it's Verizon or T-Mobile, when they're going through the county, because neither of those cover the whole county. But Verizon does cover most of the county for us. So we have checked this out, and we do know the carriers because we have all 3 of them.
Okay, my next question, and one down from that, a check to the commissioners for the utilities here in Leonardtown. Is that 100% on our tab? Do they do any sharing of that? And is the building separately metered?
It is
So
not
this
separately metered. We have an MOU that splits the total bill based upon square footage, and that is our share.
Okay, all right.
And it's 3 months. That's a quarterly bill.
That's 3 months. Okay, that's good.
It's 3 months of all the utilities. It's 3 months of the gas, and the electricity and water.
And then we did a check to Smyrla for the utilities up at Charlotte Hall. How is that calculated?
Haven't we gone through this?
Same
Yes.
reason, yes.
Again, we have an MOU and the percentages are based upon square footage. And that MOU has been in place for 15 or 20 years.
Does that make any allowances about our open hours being different than theirs or anything
We
like
have
that?
far more open hours. I hope it doesn't.
Okay.
I would like,
Go ahead.
I have a question about the item at the top of page 3. Communico, what is that?
Communico is our system for reserving meeting rooms and also for some emailing. So
that's actually for the app. Sarah told me that that's the portion that we pay. The rest of it is paid by Smyrla, but we pay for our library app.
yeah, so that is an annual contract as well.
Is that the only company that does that?
It is the only reliable one.
We also have to use what the Tri-County is using, and they did a study a few years ago for meeting room software and decided on Communico as the best option.
We looked at that, I think, when they did the initial setup of the meeting rooms, because we also talked about the privacy of the meeting room reservations. So we did go through that.
And why did we get rent on the parking lot, bottom of 3?
The school charge us rent when we want, or they charge us a fee when we want to use the schools. We use the school for a program, biking program. Lexington Park did a biking program, and we use the parking lot of the schools, and they charge us.
All right. And lastly, on page 4, once again, what is being analyzed for $200 a month by PNC Bank?
John, we've discussed this fee.
Well, I'm not satisfied with the explanation.
So we have a business account. Part of that business account is the fact that we have a secure website separate from what I log into for the actual bank account. We have a secure website with PNC that does ACH or EFTs, does wire transfers. It's also every time I write a check, I have to enter every check, the amount, who it's to, and the check number and the date into this site. So, and PNC will not cash that check unless I do that. It's a checks and balances for everything we do. So it also is our wire transfers. So I do transfer money. Some of these payments, if it says EFT or if it says ACH, I'm doing a wire transfer and not a check. So that's all in a secure location. It's also security, like they're doing checks of our bank account, and they are fraud checks. All of that is part of that system. Everything that I have that's a normal payment that I am doing through ACH or EFT, I have to enter that vendor into this particular site and say, I usually pay this person once a month or twice a month, and it doesn't go over this amount. It's all security. So a lot of that is from that, and it's also just the fees of banking. But all of it is part of the business banking account. All of it is part of the security. Some of it is because you asked us to get more secure 2 years ago, and we did. And this is what that left. This is what the outcome is.
So from what I'm hearing, perhaps the word analysis is not correct. It's actually a
That's
cost,
what they call it.
but it's really a cost for doing processing certain transactions. Is that
Absolutely.
closer
That's
to
what
that?
bank fees are. Yeah, that's what bank fees are. And that's just what they call it. I get an analysis report that's a bill. And so that's what's entered into here and what I pay. But it is the fees. It's the banking fees for all of that security, and plus just the business banking, our checks, all of that. It's the banking fees that we pay.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any other questions about the monthly nitty-gritty report?
Linda, I just have a really stupid question. On the amounts, I'm noticing that a lot of the amounts are listed twice, and sometimes it has a positive and a negative. Is that where they requested a fee and then reimbursed?
No, it's just how QuickBooks processes it. It's a debit and a credit.
Okay.
It has to go in and out in some place, and it's just the way the report runs.
Okay, thank you.
These are all expenses, so they were all paid. It's just how the report runs.
Okay, can we move along? Maybe get a motion to approve these?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, now we will skip down to Smyrla report.
All right. And we heard from Greenway Strategy Group presenting an update on the development of strategic plan. They had proposed 17 initiatives to meet 11 objectives that were based on 4 strategic themes. We went through that, and so the staff for Smyrla will identify 6 initiatives that can be done this year. And I guess this the fiscal year it's about to start. And then internally they'll work out specific steps, since the strategic plan is a little more global in scope. Sort of like how we have a tactical plan versus our strategic plan. We discussed the renovation of Shaw Hall, and that's further down on the agenda. I think you have that, Mike.
Yes, I'll talk about that.
All right. So we had a member step down due to time commitments. He recently joined, so we're in the process of interviewing candidates for the two community slots for St. Mary's for the Smyrla board.
Oh, you have candidates?
Yeah.
Good.
And new courier started May 19th, and it took a few days, but the process seems to be running smoothly. And then the board will discuss its goals for fiscal year 26 at our meeting in August. That's the next meeting. Usually every other month. Sometimes there's a case where we need to have a meeting in the off month.
Great. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
John, I'm a little confused about something. This study group recommending these certain steps, is that for us or for what Smyrla intends to do?
For what Smyrla intends to do, I think there's some collaboration involved in some of them. I can get the full document if you want.
Okay.
But it's driven driven by Smyrla, you know, in terms of, and some of it affects how Smyrla interacts with the three libraries.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. Now we'll move to the director's report.
Good morning and thank you. We will begin by looking at the fiscal year 25 budget. You have that document in your packet. We are obviously approaching the end of the fiscal year. I would say that this may be a year when we spend more than we take in. In part, that will be because we are spending down some overage or for some large amounts that built up over the years in the Friends of the Library donations and in public donations. And we're spending those down as much as we can, preferably to have none of that money there. That will not affect the fund balance because those are restricted funds. But it may look like we spend more than we take in this year. The budget does have $100,000 built in, possibly dipping into the fund balance. So we may dip into the fund balance this year, but it will certainly not be anything like $100,000. Draw your attention to page 1. You'll see that except for Leonardtown, in every case, the insurance amounts are over what was budgeted. We will look at the fiscal year 26 budget later. We are budgeting for that. These are not raises in individual rates. The county has told us that for next year, the individual rates are not going up. So each person is not paying more for insurance. This is caused by new employees who are full-time taking insurance when their predecessor who left the library did not. Also by a young staff. When people turn 26, they are no longer eligible to be on their parents' insurance. And that's a life event that triggers them to be able to come onto the library insurance, and in some cases at a family rate. So we are looking next year, as we'll see in more detail later, at substantially more expenses for health insurance. Again, that is not due to individual rates rising. I will say that if you look on page 6, we are going to, we just did the first week of this month get the final St. Mary's County Library payment. So if it comes in roughly the middle of June, there's going to be a lot of money sitting there that we won't have had a chance to spend down for the year, or so it will look like. So that has to kind of tide us over for a while. So that, because we do the audit effective June 30th, that can kind of skew what it looks like we have. Again, we point to that profit and loss statement that we work out with our accountant as to what our actual budget will be. So when that profit and loss statement is done and the audit process has already started, we will have some idea of exactly where we are in terms of income versus outgo. But basically, just like to ask what questions you might have about this budget.
Did we ever get about a total on the library book sale for this year and how much the
Yes, the library book sale that comes from the Friends, and that was about $59,000 total. There will be $5,000 that we give to the fairgrounds. There'll be some incidental expenses. The Friends have pledged to give us $50,000 after July 1st as the kind of the profit from that. So yes, it was slightly down from last year, but not much. And we are already making plans with the Friends for the next year's sale. And Danita will be leading that. So Danita Mujasri. So we are very pleased. The Friends are going to have a pop-up sale in August before school starts, aimed primarily at teachers and parents. And then they'll have their December event. So Things are
Mike-
going
Mike-
pretty well with the Friends.
Michael, for
Yeah.
clarification, and when those dollars come in, are there any restrictions on them?
Yes, there are substantial restrictions on them. Though money may be spent on only 4 things. They may be spent on library facilities, on programming, on staff development, or the collection. Other questions about the this year's budget? Again, we'll kind of know exactly where we are once we have that profit and loss statement that we work on with our accountants. Probably see that September. Well, no questions. I'll go ahead and move along to what's happening in your library. And the answer is lots. May, you might think, would be a somewhat slower time because we're getting ready for a busiest season of the year, which is the summer reading program, which starts when? Today. So please join our summer reading program at your library. Basically, we're talking about what happened in May. We did conclude the budget process and express our gratitude once again to the county commissioners for their strong support of the library. There is now a law in place in Connecticut about fair digital library prices. And it is followed very quickly by a bill in New Jersey to try to get the same thing. The New Jersey bill is a bit more aggressive than the Connecticut one. It says libraries should not be charged more than consumer price for an ebook. It also says that if a publisher wishes to offer metered access, which is on our ebooks, either a certain number of circulations and it's gone, or a certain amount of time and it's gone, that if they wish to do that, they must also offer perpetual access on ebooks. I bring this up because I'm publishing a study in July, and a lot of the data in that study was used to justify some of the bill process moving forward. On June 27th, we're having the annual meeting of the ALA Core eBooks Interest Group, of which I am the chair. If you wish to see that meeting, you will have representatives from Connecticut and from New Jersey. Also, the head of the ebook study group, who's a copyright laureate at Harvard University. These are all my buddies. I organized this. So if you want to watch that, you can see kind of the shakers and movers in trying to get a better digital content experience. Email me and I'll give you a link to watch that. It's 9 to noon in the morning on June 27th. Charlotte Hall renovation. In early July, the county will release an RFP to get an architect. And as I've explained before, we need to have building plans, construction estimates, construction schedule, basically get everything ready to go so that next March and April we can apply for state capital grant funding. We're going to ask for at least $2 million to add on to the county's $5.5 million that is set aside. We did approach Smirla and ask if they would share some space, and they have said no. They do not wish to. They wish to do a facility study first. So our idea was that the front right of the library has a space that they don't use a whole lot. And we wanted to put a movable wall in there so that they would have first use of the space whenever they wanted it. But that could be our meeting room. And again, they've said they do not wish to share the space. So we are moving forward without that plan. We do have some tentative ideas about what we're going to do. and I've talked about those with you before, enclose the front courtyard, convert what is currently the lobby to all staff spaces, move the meeting room either to the back of the library or to the far left, so that we're going to open the space a lot more and have a lot more sight lines. Then inside the library, we'll do a more or less complete renovation. So we did, for the new desk, spend relatively little money, and I should say that Smyrla did pay for that desk change. I'm very pleased that the wood grain on the front doesn't match the wood grains on the sides, because our job in doing this application is to make Charlotte Hall look terrible, 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 functionally inadequate, not enough space, in horrible shape, total need for a redo, because the worse you make it look, the more likely you are to get money from the state. So we didn't want that kind of new desk. It just has an area cut out in front where it's ADA compliant. It looks very nice, but we didn't want to look at too nice, like a brand new desk or anything. So that's kind of where we are on that one.
Ask a question.
Sure.
Like this building, does the county own that building?
Yes, the county. Well, it's very complicated there. When the building was built, the state funded part of the building. Now, the county owns the building, but because the state funded that, there's an MOU between the county and us, between the county and Smyrla. They have the rights to their spaces. So it's not like the county can go in and say to Smyrla, guess what, we're taking your space. That's not going to fly.
So they are not sublessees of ours.
No, they are not.
Michael, can you tell us about the timeline for the RFPs and approval process, or the review process?
Well, that's a county thing, not ours. We don't, while I have been involved with talking with the county about, what we might like to do. And once the RFP is approved, we will be involved with the selection of the architect, and we'll be involved with all the plans, which is just like when we did this building. I would imagine they will probably have no more than a 6-week or 2-month window to apply. The county commissioners will make the decision about who they hire. We will have the ability to say, of the people who apply, well, here's who we'd like. And then it will have to be a fairly quick process, call it 6 months of that work, but that shouldn't be a strain for any architectural firm who would be applying. We do have at least one firm who did the facilities master study, is a very prestigious architecture firm. They might be interested. Graham Parker, who did this building, might very well be interested. We'll have, I think, quite a number of firms who would like to see what they can't do with that space.
Michael, does the budget or the property itself allow for any kind of expansion of the building, even if it's just a matter of a small wing?
It's complicated there. Out back, water stands, and so going out back, you'd probably have to be careful about any kind of cement slab you would put in, do some remediation. To the side, the topography is not very well suited to expansion because it goes up onto a hill. Our real issue there is not so much the space. I mean, we could go out front and have the building really close to where the parking is.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is money. Even if we get $2 million, $7.5 million sounds like a lot of money, but when you start talking about expanding a building, it's not.
Yeah.
To really do a nice expansion there, it might almost be enough that we could do a new library, which I'm all, hey, county, if you want to do a new building up there, that's fine with us. We do think that the traffic pattern up there, which has changed, and if you've ever tried to go into the Charlotte Hall location coming from the south, we do think that is impacting the circulation there, which we've seen not be as much as it was at the beginning of the fiscal year when that traffic pattern wasn't there. I wouldn't mind a new location, but I just, there's not that kind of money.
As far as the building itself, I feel it's mostly a matter of not just upgrading the building, but making effective use of what's there. You know,
Yes,
'cause obviously it's what, 40 years old?
Yes. We'd like to see better use made of the spaces, have it more open, look more like a modern 21st century library. Probably have to replace the windows. I wish we could afford to expand them because they're not particularly large, but you know, little things like that will make it much more sustainable in terms of the electrical use.
So you mean like making it more energy
So, yeah,
efficient?
so there'll be, it doesn't look like we're going to have to replace the HVAC system. I understand the county is going to be doing that ahead of time. So that would not necessarily be part of this expense, which is good because that could be a lot of money.
Yeah.
Michael?
Yeah.
This might be just this is far too expensive, but is it possible to go up?
Again, we internally, and I will credit Laura with the possible idea here. Well, why don't we just go up? Again, we have to look at the money. You'd have to have an elevator and stairs, and you have to shore up any kind of floor. And if you put books up on a second floor, you really have to be careful. So I don't know that we would have at $7.5 million the amount of money it would take to do that. However, that's why we're hiring an architect who know a lot more about it than I do. So that I think that we want somebody who's going to be very imaginative and come in and say, okay, for this amount of money, here's how you get the most space.
I know that what you've mentioned as accessories are going to be required, but would a balcony kind of a thing work? Not a complete overhead?
The question would be how to use it and also safety. So I once went to a brand new library, and I won't say where it was because I went in Maryland and they did that. And we were all laughing and just calling it the suicide bridge. I would be very reluctant about doing that unless we made sure that it would be not possible for young people to have fun and parkour inside the library. That would be, it's not impossible. Again, we'll have to look at the money, but how would you use it? I mean, how wide is it going to be something usable up there? Possibly a study spaces, but again, you'd have to have an elevator to make it ADA compliant.
ADA requirements and so forth.
Yeah.
So it gets expensive when you start talking about these things, but again, that's why we're going to hire an architect, and I think we'll come up with something really good. And Smyrla has said, as part of their facility study, they are not ruling out shared spaces. But if you wish your board to talk to the Smyrla board about that.
And if Smyrla were on the second floor, you would still have your elevator requirement, but it wouldn't have to be quite as nice. Just saying.
Just a giant open office
Put
space.
in the dumb waiter and say, just get in there. Yes. Mary Ann has done a huge amount of work with heat stress procedures. We talked to you about it's a new state requirement that all staff be trained on them once a year. And it's primarily for our outreach staff. So on a day when it's above 90, for example, they have certain amounts of water, and it's a rather large amount. How much is it?
32 ounces of water per person per hour.
So, so we have to follow these. They are, state law. But so we have the training modules in place, and Mary Ann has done a fantastic amount of work to get us up to that. We have begun our Hoopla messaging, and as we, you may have seen, we are officially dropping Hoopla. There's two reasons for that. And I've sent an email to the county commissioners and the county executive, let them know those reasons, just so they think, hey, we're giving you money for digital. What are you dropping this popular service for? The first is that the costs have become excessive. 3 years ago was about 40,000 a year. It's now over 80 for us. This is happening regionally. Calvert and Charles are also dropping it. Regional costs have gone from about 150 to over 300,000 a year for this service. We have about 900 to 1,000 steady users. So a relatively small portion of the library is using a fair chunk of change. And it's just a much more expensive service per checkout than the others. So that's one reason. And we are putting more money into our other digital platforms. We can get that at a better cost per use. So we are expanding those, including in our Palace service, a lot of anytime checkout. It's always available audiobooks. And that's that Blackstone expense you saw on the EALs. The other reason is that Hoopla continued, despite our protests and incidentally protests across the country from the library community, to import a lot of substandard AI-generated content, including in a couple of instances that librarians found content that would be inappropriate for a public library. With all the challenges going on to libraries, we really don't need somebody surfacing actual content that we would say, oh my God, what is that doing there? They were not curating their collection. Since a lot of people are dropping them, they're trying to do so now, but frankly, we don't think it's our job to look every day at 100,000 new titles coming in and say, yeah, we don't want that one. So we are dropping Hoopla. It is not a decision we made lightly. We did not want to, but it is the fiscally responsible and the collection responsible thing to do. So just for the public, in case anybody is watching, we are adding to our other services, and we're also getting 2 new ones. One's called Comics Plus, and that is, as the name suggests, digital comics. And the other is called Canopy. It's classic and documentary movies. The one service that Hoopla was providing that we are not matching yet was music. Wasn't particularly heavily used for music. We will be looking at another service that does music and just see if it can be cost effective for us.
Are the 2 new services in place now? The comics and the
starting on July 1.
Canopy, July 1?
And staff are being trained.
I saw the press release on the Baynet. Was that something we collaborated with Charles and Calvert on putting out that release?
Yes,
Yeah,
that was
we
a
did.
regional press release. But as I say, we've been doing our own messaging as well. And so far we've had 2 complaints. I anticipate more when people in July go to, because we send out an email to anybody who has a Hoopla account and say, guess what? And we know that people don't look at their email. So we think in July when they say, what happened to my Hoopla? I'll start hearing more. And we will, I have a response ready to go explaining all these things. Again, it's not something we wanted to do. It was a popular service primarily because there was never any wait for things. But every time somebody checked something out, we were paying, and it's just gotten to be out of hand.
Michael, do you have a comparison or some idea of the comparison between the movies that Hoopla offered and your new Canopy service?
Hoopla offered more, but it wasn't really offering frontline, this just came out kinds of things. There was always the delay there. So it didn't have extensive movie collection. And once again, that was not something that was particularly heavily used, but we are trying as much as we can in a very cost-effective way to make sure we're not losing services.
These price increases that you mentioned for Hoopla, do you think that was just a corporate greed, or were they being squeezed by copyright holders, or?
They didn't really raise their prices. The trouble is that more and more people were using it, and at a very high cost per use.
Got it.
So in some ways, they're a victim of their own success, or we were a victim of their success. People like the service. It's not a bad service other than that content they kept bringing in that we said, we don't really want that. It was more just that we had a number of people who were power users and used it a lot. We tried any number of things, like we lowered the number of checkouts you could do per month. We lowered the amount of things you could check out. And when we did that, we got rid of most of the audiobooks, or a lot of the audiobooks. So we tried a lot of things, and it become too pricey. And I wouldn't say they've raised their prices or they're being squeezed so much as it's just an expensive way to do library services.
Okay, so this thing is a victim of our own customer base liking them.
Yes.
All right.
Which makes it difficult to say no to, but we will find other great places for that funding. At Charlotte Hall, we did complete the desk renovation. All three libraries are working with Park Hall Elementary School media specialist. Students are going to have a library passport, and they're encouraged to visit each branch this summer, and they're going to get a little sticker on their passport. So we're working with the schools to get people coming out. Branch manager up there took a training on managing intergenerational staff, and we are seeing quite a fair number of people who are younger come into the workforce now. Their expectations and their thoughts are perhaps a little bit different than an old man like me. So how do you know trends? What are things that motivate them? That's training, that sort of thing. Here in Leonardtown, the seeds planters are out back. Those were stocked by the master gardeners, and they're growing very nicely. Go on up back on the porch and see. The Piscataway art from our April program is being framed, is going to be incorporated into Maryland Room as a permanent exhibit. Speaking of permanent exhibits, if you go to the fireplace outside of the Maryland Room, you will see a new painting. It's called the Salisbury. It is of a schooner that plied the Chesapeake. So it's a nautical painting. It was donated. The donor wanted someplace where it would be seen a lot and kind of fit in. And painting a schooner fits in fairly well with the sort of bay theme we've got going here at Leonardtown. So go out, please, and take a look at that. At Lexington Park, the staff are learning the new equipment that has been purchased with a Makerspace grant. We have a new partnership with the Boys and Girls Club and elementary out of school time to bring students over to the library. And we had 161 children come for Makerspace activities. Amy is planning lunch at the library 5 days a week over the summer. And we'll have enrichment activities and a pop-up food distribution event with the St. Mary's County Health Department. We've had some recent staff turnover, and in some cases they've moved other places in the library. In other places, we're seeing that it's time for the base to have transfers. So, you know, we do have many spouses from the base who work here and love working here, regret leaving, but the family moves, the family moves. So we've got 3 new folks here at Leonardtown and 4 at Lexington Park. So they're being trained in the new rules. They're ready for summer reading. We had a team of librarians attend the Maryland Makerspace Conference to network and find out more about how to do a makerspace well. Really excited about a couple of things happening with our mobile library. So they're going over the detention center now, and they're having a stop there. And they're also having a book discussion in a women's group there. So again, very excited about that. We are also starting in June going to be expanding our service at the Veterans Home. Currently, we have a stop there. Starting in June, once a month, we're going to go there for tech support. So folks there who, you know, are in the Veterans Home can bring their devices, and we'll show them how better to use them, how to get library content with them, troubleshoot with them. And very happy about that expansion with our services with the veterans. We used to do a lot with them before the pandemic, and once the pandemic hit, all that stopped, starting to ramp up again.
Is there new management in place up there now?
As far as I know, yes. Coming in July, we'll have The World on the Move, 250,000 Years of Human Migration, which is a display which will be at Lexington Park. And that's going to be a great community partnership. We are partnering with St. Mary's College of Maryland, Historic Sotterley, the museum division here in the county, and with Historic St. Mary's City. And all those entities are going to be putting on programs, some at the library, some at their places. We'll be having experts come and present at the library on different types of migration movements in Maryland. So, for example, the first Americans who came to Maryland first, the English settlement and what effects that had, the unfortunate trade in slavery, we'll get a mention. Coming to the base after a certain period of time when it really expanded and changed the demographics immensely in St. Mary's County. What's happening now? The schools are seeing as many as 50 languages spoken because of changes that are happening and recent migration trends, and also migrations out of the county after the example of the Civil War. A lot of people from Maryland, if I understand it, went to Kentucky and helped start the bourbon industry. So that will be a display. We'll have some folks coming down from the Smithsonian. They originally came up with the artifacts for the display. They want to see it in a library and want to see some of our programs. So I'm very excited about that. We had Family Learning Fair at Leonardtown on May 14th with 130 people attending. And the Bug Out Sensory Play at Charlotte Hall had 78. So we're getting some really well-attended programs. We are having a $20,000 grant from the ALA next year for the library's transforming communities, which is aimed at smaller and rural communities. We're basically going to be kind of expanding on computer services and abilities. And so we're having initial conversations for a survey that we'll have to be doing with that. And speaking of surveys, we've developed one to try to find out what people who have disabilities might be wanting from the library. And it's being distributed through the Commission for People with Disabilities, and we hope to get some useful feedback from that. So lots going on at your library. Questions?
I have two questions. Has the makerspace in Lexington Park opened? When does?
I'll let Amy take that.
So we just recently submitted a grant to the TEDCO Foundation to double the money that we've gathered in fundraising all year to apply for this grant. If we receive that grant, then we will be building a glass room within Lexington Park Library. However, we did have grant money that we needed to spend on equipment this year. And so what we're doing is we're bringing out equipment and deploying it for programs as we are able to do that. But we do not have a makerspace open to the public yet. But we're operating that equipment for programs.
I know the library is doing this in conjunction with the public school systems for the daily lunches.
Yes.
Has that started? When is that?
So that's starting on Monday. And this year, we will be serving lunch 5 days a week all summer. Previously, the Lunch at and Learn program was at the schools during July. But that program is not going to be running this year. So we will be the in-person lunch for the school system. And we're super grateful to our partners at Food Services for the schools. They've done a really amazing job organizing this and using their grant to purchase lunches to bring to us.
So this is just at Lexington Park, and they're looking for volunteers. Is that correct?
Yes. So actually, I was actually just chatting with my team earlier today, and they are sending out the volunteer schedule to the volunteers that they've interviewed. So we should be ready to go on Monday.
Other questions? Thank you for that. All right, well, do you wish to take a break before you do the action items or plunge right into action items?
I'm good, just going right through.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, LSTA funding first. So there was an executive order that came out earlier this year to defund the Institute of Museum and Library Science Services, IMLS, which gives out LSTA, Library Services and Technology Act funding from the federal government to the states, which is then distributed. And that funding was, we were told, not going to be there anymore. That doesn't appear to be the case. A judge has ruled that the dismantling of the IMLS is unconstitutional, as done, and we are thinking we're going to get the money next year. The money that we thought was being taken away this year was given back to us. So we did have staff development money and the makerspace money that we were able to spend down, and we're being reimbursed for it. Then we think we're going to get the staff development money from the state next year, which is $20,000, and it will be into the budget. And we think we're going to be able to apply for up to about $30,000 in some other type of grant with LSTA money. We've got some ideas about that, but until such time as we hear definite we're going to get that, we're not really putting a grant sort of proposal together yet. But so that's good news for your library, that money that appeared to be no longer going to be there looks like the state library is saying they're going to get it. So we are grateful for that. First agenda item for action is going fine free as of July 1. I want to give you the business case for it. As of the middle of May, our fines are about $15,500. By the end of the year, there'll be no more than 16,500, we anticipate. So that's not the lost or damaged items. Those are not being affected by this. If, somebody damages a book, we're still going, let's talk about replacing that. In our payroll, we are going to be saving $10,000 by going with a new vendor. Our refuse and recycling is going to be saving us $15,500 a year. So those savings of $25,500 a year more than make up for the, say, $16,500 that we're collecting in fines. So we are in an economically uncertain time still. It looks like the base is doing fairly well, but we do know that some people are transitioning away. And I don't want library fines to be a barrier to library service in a time of economic uncertainty when people who may not have as much, especially with tariffs possibly rising, causing prices to rise, to be able to have to choose between their library use and not having their library use. We do have the funds to cover this. We know that going fine free, which Calvert and Charles have been for a number of years now, does not stop materials from coming back. If anything, they come back more regularly because people are not embarrassed or afraid of having to pay a fine. We may get some further services. We have a vendor we use to notify people of overdues, a vendor we use to notify people of fines. And if we go fine free, Calvert has since dropped that service. I don't think they need it anymore. It's not a lot of money a year. We think at this point, we're probably spending as much in staff time keeping track of fines and collecting them as we are making money. So for any number of reasons, and kind of the one that I really hope you'll consider is that we will be the last library in Maryland who collects fines come July 1. So I hope that you will vote to go fine free. The budget we'll be presenting to you does have an amount for lost and damaged items, but not for fines. So I ask that you consider this.
Michael, is your plan to enact this retroactively so anyone with a current balance, that balance would go to zero?
Yes, we are going to have a fine forgiveness time. Go ahead.
So all fines and fees would be forgiven, but not lost items. So if they had a lost item on their account, that will carry over, but the fines and fees would be forgiven for past things. So some.
This will also help with the audit. For many years back, it looks like people owe us money, and as long as they have a fine, that stays in there. So it looks like, hey, the library is owed, it's literally over $1 million. We're never going to see fines from 1990. We're just not going to. So it looks like that money is owed to us. When you look at the audit, it says, okay, you know, here's something the library may have, and we're never going to see it. So I think that it will also result in a cleaner and more accurate audit.
All right. So can we have a motion to approve going fine free as of July 1?
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? I can return my book now after July 1.
Yes.
All,
Yes.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained?
Thank you so very much. We really appreciate that. Now, on to the fiscal year 26 budget. The county gave us $394,628 above our base. Now, that did not include the 208 that we had the year we're in. So the actual increase wasn't anything like over this year, but that was a one-time thing. So in effect, it's 394,628 more, and we're extremely grateful for that. The state gave us 26,256 more than this year's amount. So the total amount of this budget over next year's budget over this budget is $420,884. So first, we'll talk about personnel services. We would like you to approve a 1.5% COLA on July 1, and then a one step, which is 2.5% increase on the anniversary of employment. And that will mean $163,781 more than this year for salaries, FICA.
I'm sorry, Michael, how much?
It will be more over this year's amount, 163,781. I wish it were more, but you're going to see in a couple of minutes why it cannot be. Next, health insurance is projected at being $106,500 more than this year. That is because of additional ads. And you see, we're already going under this year. So we're adjusting that. And we have even more people coming in the open enrollment period, which was May. So this is our anticipated amount. If somebody who's getting insurance leaves the library and the person who takes their job doesn't take it, then that will, that will be excess that we won't have to spend. But this is what we're anticipating having to spend. So the total spent on personnel increases between insurance and the pay raise is about 66% of the total amount.
Michael, I
Yes.
noticed. Oh, hi, Belinda.
68%. Hi, sorry, 68%.
I noticed that the Lexi Health Insurance balance for next year is actually less than what we've already paid for Lexi this year. Do you anticipate a drop in that cost?
Yes. So Lexi itself, there were some changes, movement of people, and we had a change of a couple people who were taking the highest insurance, and the replacements are taking slightly less of that. So it's movement of people. So when I recalculate and I have to, group this out by branches, sometimes it's just the movement of people, sometimes it's new people, but sometimes it's movement. So,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Okay, over to page 2, please. You'll see there's some minus areas here, there's some plus areas here. Some of the more significant minus areas are for Lexi water, sewer, and trash. Is going to be $8,000 less than this year. Hall, water, sewer, and trash, $7,500 less than this year. Admin telephones, $2,000 less than this year. But other areas are possibly going up a little bit or staying the same. We're adding to the utilities, and that is primarily the utility cost, $16,340 more than this year. Under operating supplies, Leonardtown and Charlotte Hall are each going up. I'm sorry, Leonardtown up 3,000, Charlotte Hall up 2,000, and in the case of Leonardtown and Lexington Park, that's because the Makerspace funds are now going to be coming out of their expenses than they currently were coming from admin. Staff development money, because we're going to be getting money from SMERLA for staff development and money from the state. We're reducing that by about $5,600. So all told for operating supplies is about 5,147 more. Over on page 3, the circulation collection is going down 20,000, but because the Friends money will not have to go to Hoopla, we anticipate bolstering that amount with Friends money. The digital collection is going up substantially, about $20,000. We know there's high demand there. So in some ways, we're starting to shift from print over to digital, looking at the increase in digital use. Let's see here. Down under professional services, payroll services is $10,000 less. So we're getting a little bit of a gain there. Mobile library is going down $4,000 because we look at this year's expense and have a more accurate idea after a full fiscal year of what those expenses might be. Over on page 4, the insurance costs are going up, and that is through no fault of ours, other than the insurance people are deciding that they need to start charging more. Contract services is going up 32,000. That's because there's a large digital expense coming for our firewalls coming up this upcoming year. And so we know that's going to be there and we're anticipating it.
Just to be clear, that's a once every 3 years contract.
Yeah, once every 3 years. Yes, thank you, Belinda. So over on page 5, we're just putting 50,000 in for FOL donation expenses for now because they're going to give us 50,000, and we'll spend that down. We do have about $40,000 in grants for next year that we already know are going to be there. 20,000 staff development, 20,000 from the ALA, and a $500 small $500 ones. So those are the expenses, expected expenses for next year. The rest of it, you know what we're getting, and that's pretty much what it's going to be. The total county funding on page 6, $4,504,664. Our state funding this year will be $974,997. And there is your budget.
I have a question. Page 3 for your virtual services. There's no expense for the Makerspace?
We moved the Makerspace into the branches.
Yeah, it's going over into the branches, which is why those supply amounts increased for Lexington Park and Leonardtown. So we were paying it out of admin. Now it's going to come out of those branches instead. But yes, there will be Makerspace expenses. And we do ask for donations for things like the 3D printer to help offset some of those expenses.
Can any of the ancillary costs in some of these programs be shifted over to FOL or the foundation?
John,
Well-
we actually spend FOL money on programming. We spend generally $15,000 to $20,000 every year of FOL money on programs. So of that 50,000 we're getting, a significant portion of it will be allocated to programs. It doesn't offset what we already need in our budget, though.
Yeah, so these are expenses, and the FOL is basically on top of that, and for the collection as well. We'll probably put, maybe 20,000 because we reduced that budget amount 20,000. We may very well put something in from the Friends. It'll depend on the demand for print and what comes out. If we have a year where there's a lot of hot titles, we might have to put more there. Otherwise, it might go to digital, but these are expected expenses.
We do take into account anything that we can spend for FOL and take that when we're writing this budget. So the budget is what we need from the budget versus what we can also use from FOL.
Michael, one thing you didn't call out, but I think is worth applauding Belinda for, is that the equipment cost is much less this year because the equipment was replaced last year. So staggering that with the other cost of the contract service, I think was a really very nicely done.
Thank you. We keep a running report of those contracts that IT has, and we have some that are 3, some that are 2, some that are 1. And so that contract line will change every year based on that. So then we have to adjust the rest of the budget for IT.
We do have a dollar amount set aside to possibly dip into the fund balance, which is 50,000. And as usual, we hope we don't have to do that, but that is built into this budget as well.
Can I
Michael,
ask
that
why
had a
it's
question.
50 and not 100 as it was in FY25?
You want me to
No,
answer?
Yeah, well, looking at the past years, we don't think that it would be necessary, whereas in the year we're in now, we had some uncertainty about it. I think we just have a better handle.
Thank you.
Other questions? If not, I would like you to approve this budget, please.
All right. I have a motion to approve the budget.
I will move.
Thank you, Sharon. A
I
second.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed or abstain?
Abstain.
All right.
And I have a proxy from Judith. Abstain.
Okay. So we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. So budget is approved.
Well, thank you very much. We are very, very grateful for all of our supporting agencies, the Friends, the Foundation, the state, our county commissioners, for funding the library in a very difficult fiscal time. If I had known in January that it was going to be this good, I wouldn't have worried so much. But I think we also need to thank our many library supporters, 12 of who came out to the public budget and 52 of whom wrote in. And so Laura, good job coordinating that effort. I think it does show how valued the library is in this county. So next month, we will be giving you quite a few things. You will get a demographics report on the library. You'll get a turnover report on the library. I will be presenting a tactical plan for the upcoming year. You will have my report of my activities so that you can begin the assessment process. And really, it will, unlike this month when we had extremely important things, there'll be a lot more on the agenda next month. So we do have summer readings starting today. please go out and take a look at our new painting. Come to World on the Move. It's July 21st through August 22nd. All kinds of great programming there and great community partners. I should add that this year's One Maryland, One book is also going to be a partnership. We're working with the college, with the museums. It's actually set in Maryland, unlike many previous One Maryland, One book. It's set on the Eastern Shore. It is the story of a family who spent its first several hundred years enslaved and their subsequent rise and growth. And it's a really moving story. So I'm looking forward to that. And that's what I have for you.
Oh, great. So moving on, is there anyone who will have any old business they want to discuss? All right. Anyone have any new business they want to bring up? All right, moving forward.
I would
Yes.
like to thank you for your service on this board.
Okay. You're welcome. All right, with all that, I a motion to adjourn.
I will move to adjourn.
All right, second.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Now that we're done, just a quick note for you that it's public knowledge. It's not like I'm presenting this as for business. I told you that Charles County has unionized. We're not seeing anything here yet. We are not